All right, I just started recording, and we're waiting for, we're not waiting, but I've been waiting for Jackie, my colleague. He must be having either technical issues or something. Hopefully he'll join on here soon. But we have a full deck to go through anyway, although he is much better programming and using GUIs than I am. I have a lot of examples here, and I can talk to them, and we can work on some code. But we're just going to go ahead and start. Actually, I'll introduce him even though he's not here. So Jackie and I have been talking for a couple years now, or maybe 3 years now. And we both love AutoHotkey. It's really more we love automating things and finding ways to be more productive. AutoHotkey is one of the tools we use most often, and neither of us are programmers. He is much more along the lines of being a programmer than I am, but we both, use AutoHotkey in our daily basis to help work be much more fun and be efficient and save time. And we love helping people, and that's why we have these webinars to help train people or educate people. And also, I love it because I hear from experts that are focused in a certain area, and I learn from them as well. So I'm Jackie. Like I said, hasn't joined yet. I bet he will here in a bit. He's over in Denmark, outside of Copenhagen in Denmark, and then I'm out of Dallas, Texas. And so, and real quickly here, so we did create just a side note, we created a Udemy course on hot strings, and so right now it's free, probably for the rest of the month. Go in and there's, I think, like an hour and a half's worth of content, but you can jump around and look at the outline and see what you need to learn, what would be helpful for you. If you're already familiar with hot strings, right, there are a lot of different sections that you can just study up on, sending Unicode or special characters or doing them in games. Context sensitive is another great one if you haven't done that. It's a great way to make them more useful. And then troubleshooting stuff also, there's some good stuff on troubleshooting there. So that was the plug for that. And now I'm going to go ahead and we'll start going into the deck here. We have 72 registrants. Typically, we get up to around half of that at some point. But of course, a lot of people sign up just so they get alerted later, because we will email you everything in this deck. I think everything in this deck, later tonight, I actually created a draft of the post. So once we're done, all I need is the video to finish, not compiling, whatever it's called. And then I can upload it to YouTube. So we'll send out links to all the content, to the scripts that we share, as well as the video of the webinar, and that way later people can review the info. So also, because typically we have Jackie and I will be talking, we start with everyone muted, but you can raise your hand and you can ask questions. So there's a thing that you can say, raise your hand, which honestly, if it's just me, it's going to be hard for me to monitor the raising of the hand and the chat because they're actually in different spots. But if you can just pop a question in the chat, and if your question is too complex, just say you'd like me to unmute you, and I'll unmute you if you want to talk. If you don't want to talk, just type the question out, and I'll try to keep my eyes on both, and we'll address them as they go. So, all right, as we get going, so the first hour, by the way, we go through this deck. The second hour, we start off trying to focus on questions specifically around this topic, which is going to be intro to GUIs. And then if once we burn through that bit, if you have other questions, anything about AutoHotkey, or for that matter, any sort of automation or web services or whatever, we're happy to discuss them and field them depending on how conversation goes. So let's get going. The very first thing is before we jump into the AutoHotkey GUIs, we always start off with the script highlight. And actually in this one, I thought it'd be pertinent to mention a script that actually helps build GUIs. And so there, I don't know if you know it, there's this TaskDialog function that with everything, Just Me had posted it, and I'll give you the link later on here. But it works in anything with Windows Vista Plus, meaning Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, all of these work. And think of it as like a message box, but with some advanced customizability, if that's a word. I don't know if it is, but you can change the widths of it. You can have some background colors and icons. And so this icon and color is built into this TaskDialog box. But this one is actually, what is that? I forget what it's called. It's a video player, but I can specify I want to use this icon in my message box, and so you can personalize it. And so let's do a quick example here. Oh, and I closed Studio. That was not smart. That's all right, though. Here we go. So let me edit this because I have separate subsections here, or Go subs. So let me launch it. And now this first one, this adjust widths, so this is this loop, and we're going to run it. And notice here, as it iterates over it, it's going to start making it wider and wider. Now, message boxes, of course, the normal message box will automatically try to adapt, but you can't specify the width. And so with these, the task dialog, you can actually say, I want it this wide, right? So that's that example. I'm going to save this, reload it, and launch it. And now this is showing all the different buttons you can have. And I actually can't quite remember if, I think all of these are available in message box, but you can specify this last number here, this 45, it's what they add up to, right? And so that's this one. And then we're going to do the built-in icons. And you don't hear it, but actually there's sound being played on each one of these. So this is the icon that it'll, depending on which one you do, will get shown in there. And so, like I said, you can automatically have those in there. You can have different now the backgrounds, one thing I don't like is the backgrounds come with the icons. If I recall correctly, you can't specify, I only want the green background, I don't want the icon. So here, there's this blue background with that icon, and then a yellow one with that. I can't just say I want the yellow, unfortunately. But you can have this pretty, they just look much more polished to me, right? So if you're using message boxes on a tool that you're giving to somebody, to me, these are a better way to make it look a little bit more sophisticated type of thing. And I'm going to run this last one here. And this is my custom icons that I have that icon file on my computer, and I'm pointing to it, but it's displaying it in my message box. Well, really a task dialog, but it's a message box. So that was, just a demonstration. And again, I'll forward this. You'll have a link to this script to play with it. But let me also show you, as I demonstrate here, there's this task dialog creator, which is pretty cool. Who made it? LB. I don't know if they were trying to abbreviate pound twice, so they're 2 pounds. I don't know. But let me go to the right folder here and exit out of that script. And this is the task dialog creator. And what I love about it is, let's say, main tip is going to say, hello world, just some random text. And here this is going to say my title. Here I can set the width. I can have it time out, right? This is a nice GUI, and this is the colors I can pick and choose. So that I'm going to keep it with that. Make it a yes, no. And now I can first view it. And so that's what it's going to look like, right? And then it'll actually show me what gets returned. It'll show it after you hit the button, you know, what the thing can capture. And so I can easily change it and view it. And then when I find what I like, I can hit generate. And this is the syntax that will generate that. I want to say message box because to me they're really the same thing, but this task dialog. And so it's just a cool, easy tool to build the task dialogs. You don't have to actually learn the syntax. You can just use this tool to basically create what you want, right? So it's a quick, easy way to do those. So, all right, that's that. So I can close this and I guess I can exit out of that too. Yeah, that one's gone. So now we're going to go into some examples of GUIs. And so in this script, this is just a launcher. And so let me run my script. So it's first going to, again, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. We're not doing that first. We're going through the deck. So first off, let's discuss when you should and shouldn't consider using a GUI, right? Why would you decide to use a GUI? Well, one of the big things is when you're doing something in your code and the thing that you're working on changes a lot, right? That's where GUIs can be incredibly helpful. And what I really should have done was, let me see if I can move this up, because these two are really related, right? That the thing changes, it's a list of items that change a lot, and you can programmatically get that list of items, right? So often I will say, let's say I'm automating my emails and I want to pick my creative, or I want to pick the list of people that I'm targeting. And so I can drop it into a folder and have the drop-down list show all of the files in that folder, and I can select from them, right? I don't have to go look for the code and find it. So that's a great, easy way to do that. When you want to limit what's actually exposed, so you can use the drop downs and radio buttons and controls to basically, it's more of a control feature where you want to only expose certain things, right? I don't want to have the end user allow them to pick anything and everything. I want them to be forced to only see this list of things and only select from them. Which actually ties really heavily into this one. The target audience that's using the tool is not tech savvy, right? There are a lot of people that I would not want to give my AutoHotkey script to and tell them just go update this little bit of the path of the file. There's a lot of people who even that is too much for them, and so building a GUI, it makes it very easy for someone to work on. When you want to use the data, and let's say it's like a spreadsheet, right? And you want to look at, there's rows of data, with columns in it, and you want to be able to sort, but when you sort, you don't want it to go out of, each row is an individual record, and you don't want them to get out of sync with each other. And so like a list view or a tree view are great things that using for stuff like that. This lockdown use of the control, that has a lot to do with these top two. You don't want to let people do whatever. You want to make sure certain values in the field. So unfortunately, yesterday, what day was it? Sunday, when I sent out the email reminder to people, I had forgotten to change the subject line on my email reminder to the webinar. And so I launched it, and I caught it after, I think, about 80 people. But what I should do, which I have on my other scripts, is have a message box pop up and show me what the subject line is, right? And say, did you change the subject line, right? So it's great ways to make sure. Let's say you had, and that's why these two are somewhat related here, right? I have a subject line here. Later, I have the tags that are going to get flagged on it. Then I have the dates, and those are in different spots in my script, right? And I have to go, if I'm a programmer, I have to go make sure I go update these things at different spots. Well, with a GUI, you can put, regardless of where they are in your script, you can put them all in one interface and make it really super easy to make sure you update them. And then when you're dealing with images, something that the image actually, let's say you were trying to sort your files, or you want to categorize them and drag them and do stuff, but the actual thing that you're looking at is going to help you classify it. That's where having an image of it, or videos and images, really help you use, GUIs are great for things like that. So that's the one you should consider using a GUI. So let me go on the next one here. And so now first we're going to start talking off on the pros and cons of using a GUI, right? So the pros of using a GUI is that non-programmers can do a lot while knowing very little, right? They definitely can get a lot of work done. It's the way a lot of the world works, right? People use Excel and Office programs, but they don't need to know how to code things, but they can easily use a graphical interface to be able to do a lot of work. Pros, color and animation, right, are great ways to help make it easier for people to get their work done, because humans are much better at looking at visual things. So my background, I spent 20 years in market research, and people often, we would create tables and graphs, and the tables, of course, are just the text numbers of the values, but graphs in showing the differences between things is how humans can easily judge between those much easier than we can looking at numbers and then in our heads understand that one's twice as much as the other one, right? So graphs are a great way to do that. Another great one is, which I mentioned earlier, is you can use things to reduce errors, and you can create like a wizard with a workflow, right? So you can focus the end user and say start here and then work into here and work into here and work into here, right? And so you control the flow. The cons of using a GUI. Now, if you notice here, my first con is exactly the same as the pro, right? The problem is some people who don't know what they're doing can make enormous mistakes by giving them a graphical user thing, they can click drop downs, and if they don't know what they're doing, they can cause some real damage. And so what you want to do is make sure you build in safeguards. And a great case in point, someone, I forget who it was, someone emailed me this example, but I've seen it a lot in the media. This thing that recently happened over in Hawaii, that missile alert crisis. And basically I grabbed this from a report on it, but there was a drop-down menu. You know, the person that goofed on this, there was a drop-down menu which said basically, you know, here's your choice. You can either test the missile alert or choose missile alert. And he was supposed to choose the first one, and he accidentally, I think it was a guy, who cares, chose the second one, right? And that's, you know, it sounds like there was no safeguard to say, like, are you sure, you know, idiot? Because you got to build in those tests, I'm sorry, controls to make sure. You know, it reminds me, and this is like 30 years ago, when email was new. Right. I remember my friend, she worked at Levi Strauss at the time, and corporate email was a new thing. And people were accidentally, and it still happens today, hitting reply all instead of just reply. And they were really getting in a lot of trouble because they would write something. They thought they were replying back to the original person, but they CC'd, you know, 80 people. And that's one of those, you almost want to have a built-in control of, like, do you really want to reply to 87 people, right? Maybe anything over 12 people you have a warning on, or have it actually sit, you know, maybe I need a setting that I could say for the first 15 seconds, it doesn't actually deploy, because you can get passionate in email and write a snappy response and hit send and then realize, you know what, I really shouldn't send that. So there are things you can do to basically, you know, help hedge your bets and not make errors. So that's of using a GUI. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of programming with GUIs. Now the great thing is, of course, you being the developer, you can lock down the interaction and what people can and can't do. So it gives you a lot of control over what people can do. And by doing that, you can reduce the amount of errors and mistakes and really make sure people understand what they're doing when it's done correctly. The cons are, this is, until you've done one, it's really hard to understand. But it was my biggest headache when I first started playing with GUIs, and I am by no means an expert on developing with GUIs. However, I've done a fair amount. And once I wrapped my brain around the fact that on a given GUI, if you have, let's say, 8 different, you know, drop downs and radio buttons and whatever, you don't control the flow. You know, in a regular script, you control the exact flow of, they're going to start here. Then, depending on this logic, they're going to go to this process, and then it's going to be this one. Well, in a GUI, of course, they can click anywhere at any time, and you have to understand that. They're typically called events, and so it's event-driven, and you just got to make sure you understand that people can click anywhere, and if they click, let's say you had 4 buttons, and they click to this one, well, more often than not, you want to actually get all the input from all 4 buttons at the same time. When something gets clicked, it might trigger, and you go, but you want to typically read all 4 buttons and get their values at that time, because your program, more often than not, needs the values for those. So it's a whole different mindset. For several years, I was learning Python, and I was going to these large Python meetups where people who had programmed it, most of them programmed in Python, I'd say for probably 15 years or longer. And this is a group of 55 to 60 people, right? And this is when I was learning GUIs. And so I was trying to find someone that understood GUIs and could give me some tips and tricks. And so I kept asking all these programmers, I'm like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, do you program in GUIs? Oh, no, I don't touch those. Those are a pain. And it made me realize that GUIs are a whole different animal. And so a lot of programmers never build GUIs. And I also, I don't know where this fits in the deck. I should have mentioned it, but GUIs, when I first started programming in AutoHotkey and I tried doing GUIs, I thought AutoHotkey implemented GUIs really poorly, because for me, I was having a lot of issues with it. After a few years of using Python and a couple other languages and trying to build GUIs, I realized AutoHotkey actually does them really well. It's just a complex topic. And so I don't want to say that AutoHotkey is tough in doing GUIs. They actually have some amazing built-in things that we're going to review here shortly that really make it much, much easier. It's just GUIs they're a more complicated animal, depending on how many not classes. I can't think of the right word. It's not events, but things you put in there. And then the last one is you have to, you need to monitor for mouse movements or keyboard or even touch screens and controls. Thank you, Pierre. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. But yes, controls is what I was trying to think of. But there are so many different ways that people can interact with things now that it's more complex. All right, so let's get on to the next slide. So here are just some rules of thumb, right? KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That is absolutely amen. Keep it as simple as you can. Don't try to put too much on there. What's a great way to do is use tabs. So in AutoHotkey, it's easy to break out your GUI into different tabs, and that can help focus people on what they're looking at, so it's not overwhelming for them. You know what? I should have. Let's move this one up also. That should be number one. Keep your design focus on the end user, right? Don't think about how you'd use the tool. Think about how the end user, what their mindset is, what their background is, what they're trying to on average do. Maybe you might even want to create, depending on your goal and what the people are doing, a couple different interfaces based on the clientele. And so if someone does a certain thing a lot, if there's a certain group of people who do one thing a lot, you design an interface for them, and then you design a different interface for a different end user. Here's another great one. It's actually in the documentation, but Maestria taught me this one as well. Is every time you create a GUI, you know what? This one actually, I think it makes more sense. Oops, we'll put it first. So first off, get in the habit of naming your GUIs. You don't have to name your GUI, and you can have multiple GUIs out of the same thing. But if you name your GUI, it makes it a lot easier to later to work with and make sure you grab the right GUI. And even if you have one, it's just a great habit. Name your GUIs. And then also, it sounds crazy, but even if you, quote unquote, know that this is the first time that you're creating the GUI, before you actually create the GUI, destroy the GUI first. And it can circumvent a lot of issues that you run into later, because often you end up redrawing your GUIs. And I had some real problems with not understanding that I was creating a second GUI, and I forgot to destroy the first one. This one is a little confusing. It'll get explained in one of the examples. But if you have something on a page, don't leave it blank, right? Either put a text control next to it to explain what you're trying to capture, or if you just have an edit field, you can fill the contents of that edit field describing what it is you're trying to capture. And so that's a great way to actually take up less space, but make sure that people understand what goes where. And again, yeah, GUIs are event-driven, right? They're not linear. We already explained and discussed that, but it's a really critical thing of wrapping your brain around that people can start anywhere, and they do. And so just remember that when you're building your program, that it's very different. List views and tree views, you can, the general process, especially if you're working with a bigger one, is first disable the redraw, and then you update the info, and then you go back and enable redraw, and that will it'll be a lot more fluid in how it looks, and it won't be so flashy, or flashy is not the right term, but it's flickering. It can help prevent a lot of stuff with that. And make sure you build in safeguards against users making mistakes, because you'll think no one should ever do X, and trust me, they will. So make sure you build in safeguards to prevent human error and making both your life and their life, terrible. All right, let's go on to some demonstrations here. Okay, so now let me grab this so I can keep it handy here. I'll put it off to the side. Hopefully that'll be enough. And let's see, that script's running, I think, but I need to get back to it anyway. There we go. So this first one is just an input box. And so if I hit my hotkey, here is a way where, in a normal input box, which is awesome in AutoHotkey, you can have it pop up with one text field where you can enter something, right? However, in this example, I have 3 edit fields. And so I'm going to say Joe Glines, and then let's say I had a password, and passwords, let's say I'm just going to say stupid, but see how these are like bullets that you can't see them. And so when it's a sensitive thing, this is all built in AutoHotkey, right? You don't have to actually do anything custom there. And when I hit OK, my next one is going to show me what was entered. right? So that's just an example of using edit fields, basically. So let me kill that. The next one is tabs, checkboxes, and radio boxes. So all I'm doing here, by the way, is just demonstrating built-in things in AutoHotkey, just in case you guys aren't aware of them. So we're not gonna dive into the coding of those, but I do, like I said, we'll make these scripts available to you. We will, oops, I forgot to, let me close that one, save, reload, and launch. There we go. So here is where I have tabs, and also I'm demonstrating this is a multi-select, right? So you don't have to select, it's not mutually exclusive, versus on my second tab here, it is radio buttons, which basically when you select one, the other one becomes unselected. And so this is a great way to break up your content using tabs on the same GUI, and also demonstrating, you know, radio buttons versus a multi-select option. When I hit OK, it'll show me what was selected. All right, so that's that one. This is a nice little functionality. I have it, this is the actual script. I had it read in the, so you can see it here. So it says file read, store it in a variable, read in the script that it's looking at. And then I pass it to this function that I wrote with Maestri's help. He tweaked some things to allow me to be able to resize it, right? So that's, I love this because often I'm trying to display some text, and it the message box that, or even just a regular edit field, you can't resize it, but it is pretty easy to do, right? As long as you don't have other controls on the page. When you start having other controls, it starts to get very complex. But this is the code that that does that. And here, notice also, so in this example, I named the GUI 12, which has no logical meaning. I should have given a better example here, but that's the name of my GUI. And so I first destroyed it, and then I set it as default. And what that does is when I put it as default, then everything after that will use the last one that was, you told it was default. And so I don't have to keep telling it use 12 every time. I don't have to put it into these. It'll automatically do that. But when you do that, you also have to put in the name in front of your other buttons, the name of your GUI that you're working on. And so that's that example. Here is an example of a list view. And so list views are amazing. If you work with like CSV or tabs of limited data, because you can put them in here and it's somewhat like a spreadsheet, right? It allows me to sort. I can have a header or not. I can sort on these things. And then with some work, I didn't build it into this one, but it is easy to dump in data to them. But you can have it set up where you select certain things, and then you could hit a button and extract that data and have it copied to the clipboard or save it to a file or whatever you want, right? But these come in really handy when you're dealing with, you're looking at a list of things and you want to select certain ones, and yet you have multiple columns. And so it allows you to keep the columns, keep the rows at the together, I guess is the right way to say that. A tree view, so this script will show, it looks at a given, I'm looking at Pierre saying, if using GUI name new creates a new GUI, destroying the GUI name, removes the need to destroy first. That's news to me. You know, yeah, I think someone might have said that. Someone might have told me that, but I'd still say, just as a habit, I would go ahead and destroy it, but you're probably right. So thank you for that, adding that. And anybody, if you know more than me, like I said, I can talk to the examples I did, but I am by no means an expert in GUIs. Here, I'm demonstrating, I looped over my start menu. And so again, I can go in here and I'm looking at things, and I can, this is a tree view, right? So this is built in AutoHotkey. I can very easily get a list of items and their hierarchy and display them. And I think this is a list view over here, and the tree view, this is a tree view. And so this is built into AutoHotkey. I think it's pretty amazing, because in like Python, you got to have all these different libraries in other languages that you have to go download, and the fact this is built in AutoHotkey to me is just awesome. So let me close that. Context sensitive. So this was an interesting one. I grabbed this from their help. Watch when I mouse over. So see the tooltip that pops up. And so this is an edit field, so I can type here. Here's my drop-down list, which I didn't have anything by default selected. This would be like the example. I meant to do that. To say test missile send, and then missile alert and test missile alert from the Hawaii example earlier, because that's basically what happened. They had the two side by side, and just the guy or whoever clicked the wrong thing. In this next example, it's a combo box, which I think are pretty awesome, because notice I have the different colors I can pick and choose from, or because it's a combo box, I can type in here and I can add my own thing in this same field. I think that's just really cool. And the demonstration, this is from the AutoHotkey help. This one didn't have a tooltip. Although interesting enough, combo box I didn't see as an example in there, so I added it here. But I think it's pretty awesome that I can have I can give it a list of things, but I can also still add a personalized one if I want to. So it's a great, easy tool to use for, I think it has a lot of uses. Save, reload my on-screen display. So here, this is a weird example, but you can see how it stays on screen, yet there's no real GUI around it, yet it's showing where my mouse is on the screen. And so that's, again, built into AutoHotkey, so you can use that in different ways. I know a lot of people use it for turning up and down the volume, and they'll look at they'll display where the volume is. Actually, that one, if I hit escape, it kills it. That's right. Now, progress bar. This is a pretty cool one. The interesting enough, the AutoHotkey help version of this didn't work for me, and I think part of it was the default image that they had in there no longer on Windows 10. It's not available. But when I run this, so you can have it's pretend like you're installing a program, right? And so all the script's doing, let me run it again, is it's throwing up this thing, and it's given this status bar, and it's looping over all the files in a certain folder and displaying the names as it iterates over them. But that's a pretty wicked cool thing to be able to automatically have in your GUI. And this last example is an image viewer. And so here, if I think I built in a folder, I can display images. And so, and you can actually change, so that if I do it again, it'll fit the whole screen, which is a terrible example. Let me do that again with instead of fitting the whole screen. So that's, it looked terrible just because it's a small image. But images are awesome. You know what I didn't throw in here, and I should have, is built in AutoHotkey, you can have ActiveX GUIs, and it's really easy to do some amazing stuff with those. I might at some point have a demo video. It's actually like an hour and a half to 2 hours long, I think. But Maestrieth was helping a friend of mine convert his script, which was using the AutoHotkey built-in controls, to an ActiveX version. And the speed performance difference was insane, because in the original version, when you loaded like 100 of these items and it moved around, it was fine. But when you got to like 4,000 of them, it was really slowing down, and you could really, it was very hard for AutoHotkey to update everything. After Maestrieth did all the work, because I had no idea how he was doing any of this stuff, it was insane, because I had it like running 7,000 and the things were flying around my screen. It was really awesome to look at how, if you know what you're doing, you can build different controls and use different ways to interact with them. There's also like that's different, GDIP library that you can do things with images and create lines and whatnot. But it's pretty cool. Okay, so that was the list of examples that I just wanted to demonstrate. Now, what I'd like to do, let me look at my script, PowerPoint. Oh, you know what? I did forget. Editor with menu bar. Why? Oh, I didn't put it in. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Because it should be in here. Editor of menu, yeah. Let me, well, I'll just run it. So this is actually, it's a script that's creating something that looks like Notepad, right? I can type in here. I have my menu bars up here, and I can hit, file, new, and about. But this is all a GUI built with AutoHotkey, right? That you can make it so easily, make it look like you've built a tool that is just nothing, because you're connecting to the Windows API, I believe, and it makes it really easy to do these things. So let me close that. Let me make sure I'm out of my, I don't know what that one was. That one. The other one I did want to demonstrate is menus. And now, instead of this one, I'm actually not going to give you, but maybe I can find a simple example. But like this menu here and everything in it, right? This is a menu I have written that launches other scripts. It launches other scripts, or it will, like, let's say if I took this text, and let me open up Site just to keep it separate. I'm going to highlight it and say, let's say I wanted to dump that into I want to sort it, uppercase, dedupe, and count. And so that took that text that was highlighted and did those things to it. It isn't really the point of what it is, but the point being, I can assign icons and I can build menus and submenus and easily, launch other scripts, or say, go send control copy into whatever interface you're in and whatnot. Now, having said that, these menus are a bit of a pain to make, which is also why I wasn't going to really dive into them, because it's work. But we had them previously. I don't see them on our call today, but Jean Lalonde has a tool which is quick access pop-up. So I just right-clicked. Well, it doesn't matter, but I have this tool running. These same menus, where I have the structure and substructure, you can have a drag and drop GUI interface to create menus. And so while I think they're really cool to learn if you're building your own project and you want that to use it, if you're just using it to launch hot strings, or you want to create shortcuts to folders and whatnot, that cool tool, quick access pop-up, let me see if I can jump to the, there we go. I would say is if you're only using it for that, then to have the other stuff, then this tool is great for things like that. I think it's available in something like 7 or 8 languages, but it's very user-friendly. And we have demo videos and walking through that. All righty. Let me close that. So now, does anyone, before we start actually diving into making a GUI, did anybody, I know I went a million miles an hour. I just knew we had a lot to cover and I didn't want to spend too much time, but does anyone have any particular questions on these before we start building just a simple GUI with code? I'll take that as a no. Okay. Awesome. Let me make sure. Oh, you know what? Let me see here. Oh, I changed the order of stuff, so sorry, I'm a little confused. So we'll send you out these links again. So on the left here, we have tutorials. So this is actually Jackie's tutorial, and he gets a lot of views on it. It's a really cool, I should have done it as a demo, but it's a really cool, great way to create a nice looking GUI in 15 lines or less of code. It's pretty cool how he uses images to make it look like it's actually a GUI when it's not. You're actually clicking images. But that's on his website. There's this link on the forum of non-standard GUIs, and there's a lot of really great examples of GUIs that people have created over time. When I say over time, I just mean the forum post has been there for a long time, and people keep submitting stuff. A friend of mine, Hellbent, he's out of Canada, and he has a bunch, and I mean a lot of video tutorials on how to create GUIs. I've worked my way through a lot of these. Mini tutorials are really awesome because they're bite-sized. They're like 5 minutes each, at the most. So it's a great way to work through them and see what to learn little bits of information, specific ones about certain things. Whereas these tutorials, these are 2 links to the what are they called? playlists that that you'll have. These are much longer. A lot of these tutorials are like an hour long each. However, they go very broad on a given topic, and so they're great because they're amazingly in depth. However, you know, they're a longer topic, so it's not as easy to find exactly what you're looking for. You have to, you know, go with the long flow of them. I did one tutorial on using, I think I used Anchor, but I was also demonstrating on how the columns in new row YM and is it XM, I think, for the new columns and new rows work. So there's and then Hellbat and I, we did, it was I think like an hour long. We did a tutorial working together where he was teaching me how to do stuff with GUIs. And so this is a great one because I, being a novice, don't know what I'm doing, and I could pepper him and bug him with questions as he's doing it. And so it was a great learning experience for me, but it's available on YouTube. And then there's this other one from Joe DF, who's on the forum a lot, if you see him, using HTML and CSS in your GUIs. And then I'm not going to go through each one of these, but here are some links to other cool tools. There are some, this GUI Smart GUI Creator is in Studio. It's built into, I'm sorry, not Studio. It's built into Site. There's Anchor, which I've played with and also attached. Those are a bit dated, but they help when you have multiple controls on a GUI to help when you're trying to expand the GUI and drag and drop and make it bigger and smaller. They can help with that. Maestrith has a GUI creator that he's done. He also has one for color coding. Did I get rid of it? Why don't I see it? But oh, here it is, for using colors in list views, which sometimes you want to have some color. You know, the other thing I didn't demonstrate in both the tree view and list view is you can have like images in them. I think maybe that's just the tree view, but you can have images in there as well, or icons, and it's pretty cool to help you visually look at your data. And then anyway, these are other cool tools that will help you write your GUIs. All right, now finally we are on to playing with building a GUI. So here we go. Let me zoom in a bit. And let me, you know, we're going to start off real stupid here, right? So I'm going to put a return. And just so you know, this is just a function that's actually a message box. So let me, oh, they're all exited. I'm going to launch this. Now when I hit run, this is your common input box. And notice here, so see how if I didn't want to have this up here, I could just put what is your name in this field. And so people know I needed to type my name here, right? So it's a great, easy way. Of course, if they don't, it actually has data in it. And so you might get people entering what is your name as their name, which you don't want. But I can put Joe, and when I hit OK, so that it stores, this is the title field, and, you know, what is your name? And then it stores it in var, and I'm just displaying the contents of var, right? So that's a super stupid, simple, but hey, you know what? It's a webinar on GUI, so why not demonstrate it? Example there. This next one, though, now we're going to create a GUI, and so here actually, who was that? Start with Pierre mentioned. I think actually on this one, you're right. Oh, and look, I already had that in there. So yeah, you pointed out, but apparently at some point I knew that. I have a terrible memory when it comes to things. I don't do that frequently. But yes, by putting, I'm new and I've named it here, my name. And so I put in a title, and then I'm gonna add a text control saying hello. This one is commented out right now. Let's leave that alone. And then I have a text field that says, please enter your name. So these are going to be displaying text on it. And then I have an edit control. And here I'm telling it on the Y axis, go down 10. And then, so GUIs, again, and actually I noticed this, I think a lot of libraries in Python do the same thing, that you put, it's bizarre to me, but I understand why, right, is to store the value. You put a V in front of the variable that you're going to name it. And in this case, I shouldn't have said name, but that's going to be the name of the variable. The name of the variable is going to be name. Now, because I'm in my GUI here, you put a V in front of it, and it'll say later here, when I say show edit var, Oh, actually, yeah, that's the wrong thing. Well, we'll have to fix it. So, oh, I don't have a, this isn't the right one. Anyway, we'll figure it out, right? That's the fun of doing stuff live. And I thought I had finished this one up, but this should be named, but I need to submit. You know what? This isn't the right one. Oh, hold on. Let me go up here. Simple GUI 2. Is that the one I'm on? That's the one I'm on. Huh. You know what? Maybe I put it in here. Let's go ahead and switch over. It's going to be very similar, but that input box, I think this is the one that I actually had planned to work through. You know what? Before we do that, I'm sorry, guys. Let's finish up with this one, okay? So we're going to want to say a return here, right? So first off, we're going to stop that. And right now, we're not going to worry about this for now, okay? We're just going to show it. And is that running? I'll just exit and launch it. Oh, and look, here's my height is terrible. So with this 300 height, let's make that 30 and see what happens. So it's better, but not good enough. So let's say 230. All right, obviously that's way too much. But here's my text. Hello, please enter your name. And this is the text, the edit field. Let me go ahead and comment this out, and we'll see how that'll shift up. So now it's please enter your name, and let's change this to 60 and see how that looks. All right, does anyone know why is that the row? No, it's not rows. Oh, I'm in the wrong stupid one. All right, sorry. And obviously you can tell I don't play with GUIs a lot because those numbers to me, I have no idea the concept of how much that is. But here now we have our form. Now when I type something, it isn't going to do anything, right? Because I don't have a submit button. I have no way to actually capture this and save it. And so what we want to do is, let's see. So we want to add a button. And if anyone wants to help me here, because like I said, I don't do this. GUI, is it button? Where's my input box? So GUI add button default. Okay, so I'm going to borrow from this. And I'm going to add that in here. So now what I'm doing here is I'm going to add a button, and it's going to be, I'm going to make it the default option, and that way if I hit enter, it'll automatically be on that one. And it's just, actually, let's change this to say, we'll leave it as okay. All right. Now, save that. I don't know if this will cause an error. Nope, it didn't cause an error, but let me make this a little bit bigger. So now I have an okay, but when I do hit this, it doesn't do anything. Why is that? Well, I haven't told it like where to go. And so what I need to do is, and let's go back to this one, because what I need to do is have my okay and have it submit something, and then I need to put up what I submitted. And so I'm going to borrow some of this, and then we'll have to tweak it here. But yeah, we'll get that. Come back into here. Yeah, I don't care about any of that for now. So now the thing is, on that other script, the name of my GUI was my GUI, okay? This button okay, if I hadn't named my GUI, that would be fine. But the fact that is I named it my name. And so now I need to update that in this script to say my name button okay. And this is a built-in, if you had other types of buttons, you would, I think you do the same thing, but you change the word. This okay has to match, if I remember correctly. Can anyone confirm that? I believe that it can be virtually anything, but there are certain ones like escape, I think in close that are built in, and maybe okay is a built-in one also. But we're going to go ahead and now I need to, of course, get back into here and say, where was it? vname, right? So down here, this has to be name. Why is that? Because this is vname, And V is going to be the name of the variable you're storing the data for. And here, you just put in the variable itself. So let me save this. You know, I don't like not having a return here. And now when I launch it, so my name is Joe. And now I can just hit enter. And look at that. It actually worked. That's a miracle. You entered, you know, first name of Joe. And so, of course, this part is just the text of the message box. But I'm capturing that and hitting OK. If you were jumping to a subroutine, I believe this is where, now I'm not going to do it, but you know what? Let's go back to the input box. Because in here, I think, oh, I don't know. So there's ways to do labels, and I just haven't used them in a while. But if you wanted to jump to a certain label, you would put a G in front of the item instead of a V. And that makes it focus on that label. But see here, this GUI close, that is one. And now, again, it's going to work on that specific GUI. But let's borrow that. And what that one does is I'll come back here into the simple GUI. I'm going to add it here, but I need to, of course, change this to say my name. Now, when I reload this, so I have two things going on here. Oh, look at that. So, yeah, so when I run it, if I hit this, it should jump down and, you know what, let's do that. So now when I close this, it should jump down. So see how it says I'm here? And that's because I hit the close button. And that's what this GUI close does, is it'll jump down. It'll automatically jump. When you hit this close button, it will jump down to this label. I believe it's a label there instead of a subroutine, but I really have no idea how to tell the difference between the two. And then because I have it built into here, it's going to exit out of the app. I was cheating, and so I have this here. So if I relaunch it, and now if I just hit the escape key, I'm using a hotkey to, you probably notice it over here. I exited out of the app. So that is a very high level of GUIs, and I know that was not very deep. I was hoping Jackie would be able to help me with this a bit more because I don't do GUIs a lot. But does anybody have any specific questions on what they would want to add or on any of these other scripts examples that I gave earlier? Do you want to look at those, the code behind them, and you can ask questions about how it works? Because I can talk to writing them from scratch. I'm not, it's kind of out of my wheelhouse, but I think, talk to virtually anything that's in any of these if you want to look at them. That's a good point, Pierre. We can use the debug mode, and I think I actually have a hotkey for it. Yeah, in here. And you know what? Let me get rid of these two. And so now I'm going to go into debug mode. Debugger, please wait. Alt-E. So this is showing what is available. And I think if I keep hitting Alt-E in Studio, it will show me the progress of where we are. Ken, I see your question. Give me a second here. Alt-E to continue. Why is it not continuing? Oh, not in scope. This is showing the in my include here. I have these variables getting defined, so don't worry about what those are. And so now we just stepped into. Now we're in the GUI. I'm going to type my name. Hit OK. Oh, and let's go here. Yeah, I haven't used the debug mode in Studio. I know it's pretty amazing, but I have, oh, there's a step into. I should have been using that to display the stuff. But basically, Pierre's point is a really good one, because on a more complex GUI, it's sometimes very hard to tell when you click a button where you end up in your script, what sub-label or subroutine, go sub you end up going under. And that's a really handy thing to be able to see where you are. And now going to Ken's, as far as to how would a GUI work to display all the vars you currently have held in memory, the quickest, easiest way is not necessarily really with a GUI, is you can just say list vars, right? And so let me, I'll just do that right here. And I'll put a message box here just to stop. And you know what? Let me get these two back. And so now when I launch this, so see this right here. This is showing the variables and their contents. And so because in my include default script, I define this variable and this variable. They're basically line returns, but I could easily put that anywhere, and that's built into AutoHotkey. The other way you can do it is just you can get the same thing. I reloaded it, but I forgot. Let me close this here. You can double, actually, let's see, you right click here. No, it is double clicking. So let's double click on the script, and that will also show you the contents. You can view lines most recently used or variables and their contents. And so that's another way. When they're objects, of course, you can't peek inside it. There are some great functions, and if you watched our webinar on objects in classes and things, you'll see demonstrations of peeking inside of objects and grabbing the content of them. Was there any other things we want to focus on? Don't be shy. We're actually, we're right at the hour. So let me, I'm going to stop the video. And so we break it into two parts. And then if apparently there's not a lot of questions on GUIs. I know this wasn't an in-depth thing, but of course it's hard because a lot of, some people, this might be entirely new, and other people have been working with them forever. And so we thought for our first round, let's keep it real simple and just demonstrate a lot of the built-in tools. Oh, you know what? Well, we'll break that in the second hour. Let me stop recording, and then I'll start it up again.